Alright, the third round of the LMC is in the books. We were at Pit Race this weekend running with the Steel Cities region, and this is an onboard with Charles White who's given us a lap around the track. It was a fun course, and it was definitely challenging, and there was a couple of corners that were particularly difficult because they were not easy reads. This one he's coming up to right here was probably the most difficult, and that was the make or break corner for most guys. If you got that one right, you were set up for a fast finish. If you got it wrong, you were playing catch up. This slalom was also particularly tricky because it actually got faster in the second half, and we're gonna get into that. But if you didn't get back on the throttle at the right time, you wound up getting behind, and there was a lot of people that lost it coming into the finish of the slalom. It was made for a great photo shoot opportunity. But I think almost everyone tagged a cone in the slalom at some point during the run. We got an onboard here with Scott Bard showing us what that looks like when you overcook it just a little bit, and basically it's just getting on the gas one slalom cone too early. If you do it right, you can be wide open through the finish, and that definitely was helping to drop some lap time. The other corner was that first left-hander after the 180s. And I don't know if it was the pavement condition or what, but it was abnormally slick, and several people were losing time on that corner. So we have a graph here, and this is everyone's raw run times. And what's curious to know is you can see a bit of the experience level of different drivers, and when a line goes straight off the bottom, that's when someone just spun out or hit a cone and their time is so low it didn't register. There was a gentle increase in speed throughout the day, but not as extreme as some other tracks have been. The final best time from the class was just a couple hundredths, or a couple tenths faster than the first run of the day. All right, so this is a graph of all the position changes that happened during the day, and it was a very exciting, action-packed race. Right off the bat, Ted Widener set down a time that was good for first place up until everyone's fifth run of the day. No one could catch his time. And so he just hovered up there in first place for a long time. But all throughout the field, there was action happening all over the place. Every time a car crossed the finish line, someone jumped up or down in position. Couple interesting things to note is we have a lunch break after 3 runs. So there's 3 runs, a break, and 3 runs. And the top 8 positions basically parked in between those runs, and everyone did improve, but they all improved at basically the same rate, and no one changed positions. And then 8th down, it was just mayhem. People were jumping up and down positions all over the place, but definitely a very exciting race. And we're gonna pull out now Brian Nels and Lisa Stagg, so finishing positions 7 and 8. And we're going to go break down their runs side by side. Basically, Lisa had Brian up until the very last run. He barely got past her. So we have their 2 fastest runs side by side. Brian had the first initial fast run. Lisa spun out and hit cones in her first run, so she had to come back from that. And then Brian slowly improved as the day went on. And Lisa had a bit more of a sporadic approach. Her last 2 runs were kind of Hail Marys. Taking out cones all over the place. So her 4th run was her fastest. Brian's 6th run was his fastest. Once when he finally got a better time down. So we're going to go through this run here, and what we're going to do is we're going to freeze frame the video and point out some things as we go. Lisa had a better launch. You can see the difference from the cone gate to the dashboard of the car there. Lisa had a better launch, but then struggled on getting around these 2 180s. Brian's car, he's actually co-driving the 38 car rather, this weekend because his car was down, and that car was very loose, and I think that helped him get the car rotated and get through those 2 180s. So by the time he comes out, he's ahead, and the gap that he created there, he basically maintains to the end of the run. So everything else is pretty much equal. They get through that last left-hander the same, and they actually complete the slalom in basically the same amount of time. So it's just getting a little bit better of an exit out of those two 180s. Lisa's been working on corner exit this year as her one weak spot she's trying to improve. So here we have the raw lap times for the top 7 drivers, and the interesting thing here to note is the different approaches to getting a fast lap. As we all know, it's only the fastest lap that counts, and there's a couple different ways to go about that. You can see Andrew and Charles in particular have a very methodical, slow approach to gaining lap time. Put down a good base run and then keep improving on it throughout the day. Charles actually never went backwards. Every single run was slightly faster than the last run, leading up to his 6th run, which was his best. Then you have Ted, Lisa, and Ryan, which have a bit more of a shotgun approach. Well, Ted and Lisa in particular have a shotgun approach where every run is either a hero run or a tragedy. And you send it all out there and hope it sticks. Ryan had a nice methodical approach going, and then just ran out of traction at the end. So he was grasping at straws and trying some things there. So his 4th run wound up being his fastest. Brian and Andrew Mercer are probably the more traditional approaches, where there's some ups and downs. They're experimenting with some things, but it's an overall upward trend. So this is good to know, depending on who your opponent is. When you're racing someone like Charles, his last run of the day is going to be his fastest. You got to bank on that. With Ted, his first run of the day was his best time, so you just never know when it's going to come up. So it definitely changes the dynamic when you're looking at the scoreboard and trying to decide how aggressive you need to be on a run. Now, let's look at just the top 4 positions here. And Ted put down a 38.08 first run of the day, and nobody passed that until Andrew Mercer got by on the 5th run of the day. And you can see if we had another 2-3 runs, Charles clearly was going to come up and take the lead. He was on a definite upward trend throughout the day. And Ted was just trying all sorts of stuff. We talked to him at the lunch break, and he was messing with tire pressures, and he was wanting to switch tires at some point. He wasn't happy with the way the rear tires were biting. Andrew was also playing with some stuff, and you can see the definite changes and results from that. So here we have the top 4 drivers minus Ted. I do not have an in-car video from Ted, and we have Lisa actually coned away a run that would have been good for 4th place. Alright, so right off the bat, you can see who got a good launch and who didn't. Lisa actually got the best launch of anyone here. Jonathan got a decent launch, and Charles and Mercer were actually a little bit further back. But Lisa's going to lose that lead she's got by the time they get through the first 180. So as we go along the straight here, Lisa's definitely ahead of everybody at this point, and Mercer's actually the furthest back. He is the only guy in the top 4 that is in an NA, and it's a N6. So he is down on power a little bit. You can see a little bit of the difference in approach angle here. Who's got the car more rotated and who doesn't. Lisa's got the car rotated early and actually gets a decent exit out of this, but she doesn't carry the speed all the way to the outside. And that allows Charles to completely close the gap at this point. It's hard to tell. The Mercer's camera's not in the same place, so we can't actually see the apex on the inside. When we get to this next right-hander, we're actually able to see what's come up. And Charles has now got the lead. He is pretty much closed the gap and is ahead of everybody, and Lisa's fallen back. So again, that corner exit really impacting how fast her runs are. As we come up to the next straight here, we're going to note the position of the water tower in the background. You can see how far the car's been rotated. Andrew's under-rotated the car at this point. He's not got it as far around, even though everyone's at basically the same point through the corner. And that results in, look at the steering angle. Jonathan's steering wheel is straight. He's already got the car completely rotated. He's able to go wide open on the slalom. And Charles still has got it at full lock to the left. Still has to complete that corner before squaring it up. And that affects how much speed he's able to carry through the slalom. The slalom is where Andrew Mercer actually closes all of his time, and he completely blows by Charles to take that second position. Just a huge run through the slalom. and then everything finishes. And Lisa would have been right behind him in third place if she hadn't a cone that run. She tagged one of the cones in the slalom, and that was game over for that. So looking through the field, there's some other interesting things to see. If we look at Scott Bard, who after his first run was in 10th and wound up finishing P16. And at first glance, it looks like he got slower, but you can't get slower at autocross. So what actually happened there? How did he drop that many positions? And basically, when we look at the run times, he basically continued to run a very steady run. His first run was only about a quarter second slower than his best run of the day. So he remained very consistent and repeatable, but the general trend for everyone in the field from about positions 8 and down was to pick up about 2 seconds from your first run to your last run. So an average run is going to keep getting faster. And that's a tough part with the part of this sport is you have to anticipate what the field's going to do. And some people are really quick to get in their baseline run at the beginning and be right on track, and other people are going to slowly keep building on it. If we look at Justin Pacey, he actually did a really good job continuing to improve. He never slowed down. Every run was a little bit faster than the last, and he wound up, only finishing one position higher than he started, but he was keeping up with that natural trend of the field as the track comes in, temperatures come up, and people get more familiar with the course. The other interesting battle was Tim Staggs versus Michael McSteen, who swapped position for last position several times until Tim miraculously found 3 whole seconds in his fourth or fifth run to bring him up the field. And it was a hit and miss. If you look at his lap times, he kept switching. Every other run was 2 to 3 seconds higher than the last one. So as he kept picking up time, he kept working his way up the field there. So it's fun to look at all this stuff and to try and use this ahead of time on future races when you notice what the trend of a track is going to be. And some tracks don't have a trend. There's been some tracks where they're due to weather conditions or temperature or format. The fast runs happen early and then no one can catch up to it again. And some tracks have a huge amount of speed as rubber gets laid down, people get familiar with the track, and other factors change to allow times to drop. So round 3 is in the books. Here is our current championship positions. And you can note a couple of the scores at the end. They are getting really tight. And there's going to be some positions changing around over the next couple of races. So catch you guys next time.